welcome back to the Wild Thoughts podcast. I'm your co-host Kat.
I'm your co-host Afi.
And today we have a very special guest. We have Fillion here with us.
Woo!
Very excited. Happy to have you here.
Yes, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So we're going to be discussing mental health and with more of a focus on anxiety. And just want to say we're not mental health professionals, so take everything we say with a grain of salt. We're just sharing our experience, and we thought it'd be fun to just raise awareness and talk about it. So yeah. So before we get into it, we're gonna ask Alex some hot seat questions.
Ooh.
She can loosen up and we learn a bit about her.
Exactly. Don't worry. They're not too crazy, so
they're fun. Okay, so first one. What's one place on your travel bucket list that you're dying to go to?
Oh my god, there's too many. I'm gonna say two. The first one is Peru. I really want to see the Machu Picchu.
Nice.
That's been like a dream of mine forever. And also like that oasis in Ica. Anyway, so there. And then also Kyoto, Japan. I really want to go eat sushi in Kyoto one day.
My brother's obsessed with Japan.
and the matcha. Okay, never mind. No matcha.
No matcha for me. We'll get into that after. But
Yeah, like the best matcha is made in Kyoto, like where they grow the
leaves?
Yeah, it's there. Like the best ones. Yeah, apparently. When I looked into
Interesting.
matcha, that's what they said.
maybe I would risk it for the biscuit if
Maybe
I'm
just
in the
for,
place
like,
where
a one-time thing.
Why
just
you
'cause
don't
you're in
like
Japan.
matcha?
we'll get into it after.
okay.
It's in
But yeah, I heard good things about Japan and Peru, so
I just want to go to Japan when I have like more money because like
Yeah.
I want to live it up.
Yeah.
I want to be a bougie bitch when I go.
yeah,
Yeah,
no,
you need
we
to.
feel you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, this is a good segue because the next question is, what's your go-to drink?
Like beverage, like alcoholic or like non-alcoholic.
Whatever you want.
You can do
Whatever
both.
Yeah, if you want to.
Well, no, I drink a lot of margaritas these days. I
Did
got
you
in
order one? Was
Yes.
it a margarita?
Yeah, the other time. No, it's like I've been on a margarita kick for like 2 years since
Yeah.
COVID. Like I started doing like margarita Fridays when I
Yeah.
was back when I was still living at my
Fun.
parents' house. Like they have a pool, so I'd just like make a margarita and like chill by the pool on a Friday night.
That sounds relaxing.
And now it's just become like every time I go out, I'm like having a margarita, and now I'm kind of picky
It's
with
like
my
your comfort
margaritas.
drink.
I'm like a margarita snob now. Like,
no.
oh yeah, I rate them. Like I'll have one, and I'm like, this is a
Margarita
This is a
hottie.
sugar rim. Nah, like it needs to be salted rim.
Oh, okay. She
nice.
knows. She knows.
And it's like always, I like it shaken in an old fashioned glass.
Whoa, that's
Fancy.
fancy.
Give me a slushy, I'm gonna be like, what's this?
Okay, damn.
That's so
okay.
fun. I've been into lychee martinis actually.
Ooh.
That's been my go-to recently.
Okay.
I've only had one of those like once in my life, but I'm definitely open to trying that again.
They're like not too sweet. You still get a bit of that like sourness. It's good.
They're very
Lychee is an
pretty.
interesting taste.
Yeah, I love lychees. So good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Love the fruit.
Okay, last question. This is an interesting one. If you could have dinner with any public figure, dead or alive, who would it be?
I feel like everyone has a really good answer to this, and like, I don't.
It's okay.
But, like,
answer is acceptable.
I'm obsessed with like ABBA, so I feel like I'd want to have dinner with ABBA.
Stop. Okay, our friends.
And I'd want them to serenade me. Like, is that bad?
No, that's iconic. I would love that.
I think
oh my god.
a lot of our friends do, and like Mamma Mia is like
love
everyone's
ABBA.
number one movie.
100%.
Especially, yeah.
It's so good.
That's totally cool. What do you mean?
I mean, I just feel like, you know, ABBA has been around for a long time. They
Yeah.
probably have a lot of life experience to talk about too, and they've lived
exactly.
through shit, and you know, like
some behind the scenes stuff
it'd be
too,
great.
the drama.
Yeah,
The drama.
yeah,
I
for
love
sure.
Channels
for
all
sure.
over.
Yeah.
The drama.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And
that's
how
so
they
fun.
feel about the adaptation of
Yeah.
like Into Mamma Mia.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's both the,
It's
it's
true.
the women that passed away. I think both of the guys are still alive because they had what's it called, appearances in the second movie.
Oh.
I feel like is one of the women still around?
Or is it like one
We
guy?
need to know this as
need
like
to
super
re-
fans. Like we need to do this research.
Y'all need to do your homework, okay?
Oh my gosh.
Okay, amazing.
That was super fun.
Yeah. Thank you so much for answering. No problem. So now we're gonna dive into the main topic
Question
a
of the
little
week.
more. Oh, never mind. Question of I always forget something, of course. So this week's question was: do you struggle with anxiety? So 92% of people said yes. 0% said sometimes, and then 8% said no.
Interesting.
So most people said yes. Okay.
Okay,
cool.
this is really
So
gonna benefit you guys
this
then.
is needed.
Also interesting that there's no sometimes. Like
I know,
it's
there was-
interesting that it's like black or
Yes,
white,
sir. Yeah, it was
not
like
a very gray area.
It's true. I
Which-
felt like some people would have
Like
said
I
something.
didn't answer, but I would have said sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
It's true, right? I feel
Because-
like that would be the perfect, like,
Yeah.
in between. Like, if
Yeah.
you you don't know
if you're unsure.
Very...
Okay, I think we should get into it then.
Yes. So, just an opener for the questions and the episode. So, why did you decide to be so open on social media about your mental health journey?
So when you talk about that, I'm assuming you're talking about the little stories that I made?
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's really because I originally, when I was dealing with anxiety at first and started, realizing there was something wrong and went to the doctor and all this, and we'll get into that later, but I realized that I had no experience of someone else to go off of. I really thought I was completely alone. No one knew what the heck I was going through.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in today's society, you do feel a certain shame towards it because you feel like you can't take on enough, or like you're being overwhelmed too easily, and like you should be able to be a boss ass bitch, do everything, and it's like all of a sudden you're weak and like you feel very
like vulnerable.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's why when I asked a little story asking, like, have other people dealt with anxiety? Because I think I was asking about, like, caffeine-free drinks or something. And then, like, people were asking me why. Like, anyway, so then I asked a little question like that. And I saw that so many people said yes. Yeah. And of those people, I'm kind of, like, looking through. And I'm like, holy shit. The people that I look up to, like, a lot. And that I thought had all their shit together are all in this list saying yes. And, like, people that, like, you would be really surprised by, too. Yeah. But in the sense that it's just, like... What? Like, how are all these... What? Yeah. So I was just like, okay, why are we all in our own little corners dealing with this, not talking openly about it? Yeah. And, like, I know I would feel better. Like, I already did feel better. Not that I wish this on anyone, not even my worst enemy, but I was like, okay, like... I'm not the only one here like dealing with this. So I think that's why I was just like, you know what, screw it. I'm not going to fall into this negative stigma. I want to be able to talk about it, and hopefully if I can make one small change of like helping someone not feel alone. Great. Exactly. And if I can help in any way, shape, or form contribute to like opening the conversation, even better, because too many of us are just kind of suffering in silence with that and not talking about it.
Yeah, exactly. I think you see like how do I say it? Not like a lot. You see awareness about anxiety, but like you said, it was people that you really looked up to, like the really successful people, or they post the highlights. So you don't really see them because they're keeping up with their image too. So you don't see them like being vulnerable, talking about anxiety, because it'll also not ruin, but throw them off track of their like typical image. So it's nice to see people that you thought had it all figured out too. So it does make a big difference for sure.
Yeah, okay, 100%.
Cool. We love that. And we love that you're open with it, because I think it helps me too. So.
Yeah, I love seeing, I follow a lot of influencers that actually post more real stuff. Yeah. They'll even post when they're crying, and I find it so comforting. Like, I know, like, it's sad to see them. They're going through
a moment, but it's nice
it's sad to see it, but at least I know that, like, okay, if this happens to me, it's okay.
Yeah, and like we said, it's not like we would wish this on our worst enemy, because it is something awful to deal with, but it just really is comforting when you don't see the highlight reel 24/7, because Instagram, LinkedIn, it can be very toxic, like we're talking Instagram, but LinkedIn can be toxic as hell. No one talks about burnout, but like everyone's dealing with it, so it's just like to constantly just see all these people succeeding nonstop, and you're just kind of like, okay, but do you guys ever like have a moment? Because like it seems like you don't. Like, like I have moments. So
this is why I don't go on LinkedIn. Like I get notification. I'm like, nope.
I'm such a business bro. It's like part of my socials routine at this point. I'm like, who am I? Like it's like midnight going to sleep. I do my Instagram, then I'm like LinkedIn and some notifications. Oh my sister sees me on like a Sunday. I'm like opening LinkedIn. She's like, it's Sunday, dude. I'm like,
you're not working.
The grind never stops.
Oh my god, cancel LinkedIn 2022. Okay, amazing. So the first main question was, what does mental health mean to you?
I think to me, mental health means having balance in your life and just being able to, the highest state of mental health, in my opinion, would be being at peace. And I think if you're someone who's ever dealt with anxiety specifically, depression as well, I think mental health to me would mean having balance in your life overall. And really, essentially, one day being able to just feel at peace. Yeah. And, that way you can focus on the other things in your life and stuff and keep that balance throughout. Because I think when you feel grounded, you're able to kind of have that mental health of like feeling well and being able to really focus on the other aspects in your life without constantly worrying about like
no, that makes sense.
Well, if like you've had anxiety, that like anxiety is literally just like overthinking and like being like, I have anxiety right now. Like, you know, like is shutting that off.
Yeah.
That's mental health for me.
Being able to catch yourself once you start thinking that way and reverse it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. We love.
That's what it is.
Amazing. So the next question too was basically, do you think mental health is more important than physical health?
So that's a really hard question to answer because I think they genuinely go hand in hand. Unfortunately, we live in a society which there is no stigma around physical health or little to none, right? There is for things like, you know, periods, endometriosis, stuff like that, or, you know, like maybe like diabetes and stuff. People don't talk about some illnesses as much as others, but physical illness, you can talk openly about it with anyone. And no one's going to think you're weak. They're going to say like, oh, that sucks, right? But mental health, you can't just like talk about it with anyone. So I think because of the society we live in, I think people often will prioritize physical health.
For sure.
But I'm a big believer in if you don't have the physical health, so let's say you have an awful disease that you've been diagnosed with, it will probably take a toll on your mental health. And 100%. You might, you know, deal with anxiety or depression about how your life's going to be with this disease. But on the flip side of things, and also like, let's say you have a broken leg or you lost a limb, like, or, you know, like horrible things like that. Of course, it's going to have an impact on your mental health. But on the flip side, if you deal with anxiety, with depression, you might find yourself to have really bad eating habits and, you know, not take care of yourself as much, not go for walks and not, you know, not actually do physical activity because you're scared of your heart rate and having a heart attack and like, you know, things like that can really make a significant impact on your physical health. So I think they go hand in hand. There's not one more important than the other because to be healthy overall, you need to have a balance.
Exactly. I agree.
Yeah,
it's
same.
crazy.
And actually, I know someone that actually was waiting for a transplant and they wouldn't put you on the transplant list unless you were mentally strong enough to handle it. Because it takes a toll on your body and you have to be ready to like build back up again because it's like, it's going to really impact you, right? So like the nurses and the doctors both said they're not going on the list unless mentally they're ready
strong,
for it.
Exactly. And if you're dealing with mental health issues, then it's hard to like be stable and like okay and strong enough to go through that.
And I think also if you're dealing with something that is like a physical issue, I think people don't often ask enough about your mental health in that situation, right? Because like I said, it's probably going to take a huge toll on it. So it's good that in those cases they're evaluating that because I think that's not always the case, you know?
And I think like publicly, like people don't understand mental health fully because it's not spoken about like we're saying now. So that's probably why like we don't put focus on it because we don't fully understand it.
Yeah, exactly. There's more awareness now, but I think there's still like little gaps and it's so broad, like mental health is
and I think there's also a big difference in the conversations that our generation is having versus maybe not conversations, because I don't think the older generations are having conversations, but I mean, what they know about mental health is really an extreme, like a huge extreme. If they think depression, they think someone on the BNHS sucking the system. And if they think if they think mental illness, they think a psych ward and like an institution and like multiple personality disorder and like extremes of it, like in horror movies, you know? Whereas when we have conversations about mental health, we talk about anxiety, depression. We don't always talk about schizophrenia and other things like that are more intense, which are very much a very real problem for a lot of people. So I think there's just like a lot of more conversations to be had with a lot of different spheres and kind of bringing that together.
Exactly. And the issue with that is that when they're talking about these like big drastic like extreme mental health issues, it's like invalidating the smaller ones, I feel as though, because you're not taking them into consideration. Oh, like, no, that's not a big deal. Like, you're not crazy or you're not.
I think, I don't know, I can maybe just speak for myself, but like our parents' generation, it's like,
Trust
get over it.
We were talking about this in the car, so.
Get over it. Like, you know, okay, take a minute and calm down.
Right? Like, triggers.
So like, more conversation could be had there.
Of course, 100%. And that's also like environmental, how you grow up. So there's so many things, but definitely more effort is needed on that part. Yes. Okay, amazing. Next question. So what is your experience with mental health? Like, what was your process? How did everything kind of go down?
Oh, the joys. Such a great tipping point in my life. So basically up until, I would say, 2019, basically the year that I started JMMA that summer.
That's how we met.
Yeah. So basically up until like that part in my life, I was honestly, I look back and like, I was chilling. Like, I mean, I didn't have any real mental health problems. I was a human like anyone else. I had ups and downs in high school. Everything felt like the end of the world. And like, you know, I'm not saying I didn't have downs, but I was just very overall, it was stable. And like, if I felt stress, you know, I knew I was stressed and like I found a way to deal with it and then I got through it and it was just like midterm season and stuff like that, right? It was very like the norm. And again, it was stress, not anxiety. It was like periods of stress that I had to deal with and whatnot. And then what happened was in like, I want to say March 2019, I started having episodes where I didn't realize at the time, but it was panic attacks. And like, I remember at some point, like I was living at my parents' house at this point and I called Jill actually, and I was telling her like, I can't study for a COM 220 exam. Like, woo. But I was like,
COM 220 sucks, my
COM 220 sucks. Like, don't do COM 220. Triggered my mental illness.
Skip your degree and skip COM 220.
Oh my gosh. Also COM 305 triggered me as well. But
Oh my god.
but so I was trying to study for like a big exam we had and I had like 24 hours to study all of it. And I remember calling her and be like, I don't think, like, I can't study right now. Like, I'm not, like, something's wrong.
Yeah.
And I thought I was having a heart attack, like straight up. Like I've never had anxiety or anything like that. I was sure it was a heart attack. And it was actually because like I had a migraine. My mom gave me an Excedrin pill, which like had caffeine in it. I didn't know at the time. And I was like, everything was spinning. My heart was beating so fast that I was like, I'm literally having a heart attack. And like I got nauseous and stuff. And I, you know, you start Googling. I'm Googling the symptoms and it says like it could be a stroke. And I'm like, Then my mom's like, calm down. And like, okay, no shade to my mom. She understands now what I'm dealing with. But like at the time she was like, you're fine. Like you're just stressed. And then she went out for dinner. And I remember like I called them. And like I'm at this point I'm like 22 years old. Okay. Like, and I'm like, you should come home. Like I'm dying. Like,
Come on,
literally, and like they didn't, but which is like even worse.
Oh god.
But and then like I actually called 911 and like they told me that like it's a panic attack and I was like, no, like it's a heart attack. They're like, okay, like just like lie down and like try meditating and had like deep breathing and whatever. Anyway, I don't really know what happened with it. I didn't die. Clearly, I'm still here today. So, like, I think I managed to, like, get over it. And, you know, I had my exam the next day. That was fun. But then, you know, fast forward a few months. And then what ended up happening was that summer, I was... this is after a period of, like, I was a VP marketing of JMCC, and so I was finishing my mandate there and had a lot of work to do on that. I was doing case competitions that same period of time, like quite a few. And then I was interviewing everyone for JMMA and, like, starting that mandate, getting excited about all of that stuff as well.
Do you want to explain what JMCC and JMMA are? Just because I feel like not everyone knows where they're, like, acronyms and they're like, what is this?
These are student associations. So JMCC is John Molson Competition Committee, where we do academic case competitions. As if I'm still there.
It's a part of you.
VP marketing, like always a brand ambassador. So basically they do academic case competitions and it's the committee that takes care of recruiting all of the delegates to go to these case competitions. And so on top of being the marketing person for that committee, I was also one of the delegates competing in a few competitions. And then I was also being onboarded onto the John Molson Marketing Association as president, which was quite...
Woo!
Yeah.
Whoa. It's like, whoa.
It was fun, but also like I had no background because I wasn't on JMMA before, so it was overwhelming as well, but still fun.
With all the drama we had.
Yeah. It was a fun time. There was no drama at that point though.
Yeah, true.
So it was good vibes.
Yeah,
it was good vibes at that point. And then you throw in the fact that like I also started a new job, an internship at Pratt & Whitney. Which
that's
is great.
a very stressful environment.
Yes, it was fun, but it was a very stressful environment for sure. And
oh god, you were doing a lot.
I was doing a summer class. I was doing COM 305 in the summer. That was a very long detour to say that summer, basically after COM 305, like every night I was driving into town for private tutoring to just try and get through this class after work. So, you know, I finished my COM 305 exam and I'm like, oh, finally I can breathe. Yeah. And that was Canada Day weekend. So I had a long weekend too. I was like, nice. Yeah. Nope. My body finally, like, I think I was just so nonstop. Like the adrenaline basically, it caught up with me and I had a 4-day long panic attack and I was not well. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I was like shaking
4 days. That's a long ass.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah.
Panic attack.
And it was like one of the worst experiences of my life. Like genuinely,
sorry.
it was no.
Yeah,
It's I'm okay now,
Yeah,
but like
in the moment.
they also say like the first panic attacks you have are the worst because
Yeah.
like you don't know what they are,
Yeah.
and so they're so much scarier. And I was just like freaking out, and then of course I never take a sick day, so I go into work on Monday or like Tuesday or whatever.
Oh my god.
And my supervisor was like, "What's wrong?" And I told her, I'm like, I don't know, I don't feel well, and like I think it's just like stress, like my heart rate's really fast. And she was like, "You're going to the clinic, like you're not staying here today." And so I go to the clinic in Pratt and Whitney because yes, they have a whole ass clinic.
Oh, okay, that's very nice though.
And like the nurse took my blood pressure and stuff, and I thought, I had like an arrhythmia or something, right? I'm like, it's not. I don't have a mental illness. Like I'm Alex. I do everything. I don't have a mental illness, And then she told me, she's like, this is very much anxiety.
Yeah.
She couldn't diagnose me. She was a nurse. And she was like, I'm going to give you a relaxant, like one of those little pills that calm you down. And like, it really helped. Yeah. And that's when I remember I was just like lying in the bed going like, holy shit, like she's right.
Yeah.
So it was like very much a moment of like, okay, like I have to deal with this now. On top of everything else I was dealing with, I just felt like it was like something else I had to deal with now. And then my mom came to pick me up. We went to a doctor's, like one of my family doctors, like gave us a slot that day. Yeah. And so I went to the doctor's office, and I don't love this doctor because he diagnosed me on the spot, but then he told me to stick my head in a bucket of cold water and I'd be fine.
Why are these doctors? Those are the worst type of doctors.
Exactly, but you know what? He diagnosed me and gave me a prescription for therapy. Okay. And that helped. I tried the cold water though. Yeah. I tried the cold water. I think didn't help.
I don't even know. Like, I know I see that on TikTok too. Like, I think that's a short term, but maybe not for your.
Like maybe if you like feel it start coming up and you're like, oh, let me go like jump in the pool, like maybe. But I'm like, if you're in like full on panic attack,
it's
not gonna help.
Yeah. If you're just like stressed for a test, like maybe that'll help. But maybe not full on anxiety. I don't know.
Exactly. So yeah, it was just like my body stopped sending me signals, I think, before that. Okay. It stopped sending me signals of being stressed and like being able to take a step back because I was doing everything. I had no limits. Like I was sleeping 4 or 5 hours a night because I was at school till midnight every night, then driving home, and like I was doing so much, but I thought it was fine.
You pushed your body to your like limit.
And my body stopped telling me otherwise. Yeah. So I thought it was okay, and I thought I could do it. I was still getting good grades. I was still like, and then my body like shut down, and it was like, you're done. Yeah. But so
you're done.
Yeah. So basically, what happened was a burnout.
Yeah. That's what I was.
That then triggered an anxiety disorder. So I do have a generalized anxiety disorder now, and the thing with anxiety is once you get it,
you can't.
It doesn't
get
leave.
rid of
like
it.
you, there's no cure. You have to just cope and find coping strategies to deal with it. So, but I'm doing better today.
I'm glad.
Yes, very happy that you're doing better. Yeah. I'm sorry that happened. That does suck. Okay, now that we got to know like a bit of your
thing. Sorry.
It's normal. Like it is a big process, and a lot of things happen. Thank you for sharing that, by the way, because it's like a very personal thing to share. How do you know if you experience anxiety? Like, is it kind of similar, or is it different for every person?
I can't speak for everyone else. I can speak for my experience, and like I said, it feels like you are dying, which sounds very dramatic, and I'm very aware of that. But like you feel your symptoms in your body and you know something's wrong. Whereas stress, like listen, I did a lot before that year as well, right? And I've dealt with stress before. But it's kind of like, stress is kind of like a bit like adrenaline, and it's different. Yeah. This is straight up like you want to crawl out of your skin when you have anxiety. It's a little like, personally, I can tell when I'm stressed versus when it becomes too much. Yeah. And it's overwhelming. Yeah. That's when my anxiety kicks in. Okay. And sometimes my anxiety can kick in from nothing. Like it can be from a sip of coffee. Okay. Right? My anxiety can kick in from so many things. Yeah. But stress isn't like that. Okay. You know?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I think the way I can decipher it is kind of like, if it's right before a big presentation, like, this is stress, you know? But if it's like heart palpitations to the point where I'm checking my pulse all the time, and I'm like physical, I'm like, am I okay? Yeah. Like that's anxiety, because that's when you're overthinking it now, when it's gotten to the point where you can't get it out of your head anymore.
Okay. Do you think it's more subconscious? Because I feel like sometimes I get anxious, like there's nothing coming up, and just like I wake up and I'm anxious the whole day. Like, is that just like your subconscious thinking about stuff and like you're just...
I don't know. I think it could be a bunch of different things. Like I think everyone probably has different triggers of what makes you anxious. Like for some people it could be talking about something that can bring back like PTSD for them or something, right? Like, and then without realizing the next day they're super anxious and they're like, why am I anxious? I didn't do anything crazy, but it's just because something triggered inside of, you know? Like I think it can be something as simple as that, or like for me sometimes eating stinky cheese, there's like it triggers my anxiety. Like if there's you know, like, that's so stupid, but like, you know,
different. That makes sense.
Yeah. So I think one issue is just how a lot of people misuse the term anxiety. And that's frustrating, I think, to me, to a lot of other people as well. And similarly to a lot of people misusing the word depressed. Oh, I'm depressed. Yeah. You don't, like, you're not depressed if you have never had depression. Like, sorry. Like, you can be really sad and that's, like, you know, but don't unvalidate people's experiences that, like, they are literally in a hole and not wanting to crawl out. It's different from you being sad today because you got a bad grade.
And I think that's also why some people don't want to express if they actually have it, because it's so downplayed by other people.
Yeah, like it's happened often that I'm like, oh, like I can't like drink coffee because of my anxiety, and people are like, yeah, like I know it gives me the jitters too, and I'm like,
bitch, it's not the same.
Okay.
Sure. Bye. Did you have a 4-day panic attack? No.
Talk to me then.
Exactly.
Please don't have a 4-day panic attack.
Yes.
I beg of you.
Also, we're not trying to laugh at people with anxiety. We're trying to keep it lighthearted.
Exactly. This is our coping mechanism with anxiety. Well, Alex's. Exactly. But that's actually perfect because I was gonna ask what is the main difference between stress and anxiety. So you just answer that. But do you also, so you do feel stress and anxiety? It's not like just like anxious, all like you wouldn't skip through the emotion of stress and just feel anxious directly?
It's tricky for me now because I feel like I can't even remember what it was like to feel normal stress. Honestly, like but
it's more overpowering the feeling of.
It's also weird because like my lifestyle has changed. It's not what it was, right? This all happened, and then like COVID, and you know, so like, and now I'm a professional, so it's not like I'm dealing with the stress of exams often. Like, yes, I have a big like presentation and whatnot, and like that can be some stress, but I don't feel it the way I used to. So it's hard for me to kind of say that because for me, sometimes it does automatically become anxiety, and it's like I just use then my coping mechanisms to try and like calm it down, you know. So. But I think, I don't know, I'm sure some people who have anxiety can still deal with actual stress. Right. But personally, I can't remember the last time I was like, just stressed and it didn't turn into anxiety.
Because like you said, it stays with you after it starts. That makes sense. Okay, so moving on to the next question. Do you think being surrounded by healthy relationships can like positively impact a person's mental health? Like how does that play into all of that?
Yeah, and I think even more being around toxic relationships can severely impact your mental health. I think people in your life play a huge role, and you know, I think also like COVID to a certain extent probably like helped me with that because you know, certain friendships stick around and certain don't, and I know that the people that are in my life now only contribute to my mental health and aren't like toxic energies around me. And I'm not saying I had a bunch before, but to a certain extent there are some people in your life that you don't always realize, but they suck a lot of energy from you.
It could be more subtle sometimes.
But then, you know, when you really do get to a point in your life where you've surrounded yourself with people that like don't make your anxiety go through the roof and make you feel better about yourself, and like, you know, you can hang out with it and be yourself, and you can talk openly about these things, and like that's kind of when you know you're in a better place because of those relationships for sure. And I can't even imagine someone who's in like an abusive household or like, you know, if you have like very controlling parents, like I'm so happy my anxiety came when I was older, because like when I was younger my parents were very strict. I don't know how I would have reacted to that, you know, like I think it definitely depends on everyone and on the situation you're in. But even more if there's toxic people in your life and you are dealing with anxiety, like try to take a moment and like, you know, reflect on the relationships you have, and if there's anyone that you're like, oh, this person's like, I don't look forward to seeing this person, or like, you know, this person drains my energy, maybe consider cutting them off, because like this is not gonna help. Exactly.
No, definitely. Okay, that makes sense for sure. And you're surrounded by people like often, so you want people that are healthy for you
Uplifting.
and that you're
Yeah.
gonna be open with and not feel judged. Cause
Yeah, and I think when you're younger, it feels very scary to cut people off, or like, you know, you're like, oh no, like trauma.
Yeah.
But like, as you get older, it's just kind of natural because
Yeah.
a lot of people do kind of move on and do their own things and stuff, and you do have the luxury now when you aren't seeing people every day at school and like at like your little part-time jobs and stuff like that. Like when you get to choose who the people you're going to surround yourself with. Like that's, make sure you choose the right people.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
You know, 100%. Just, if anything, just do what I do. Distance yourself. Don't have to
talking.
say it directly. Just be like, and then
Yeah.
eventually, maybe when you have the courage, you can confront them. But
Oh
maybe
yeah,
you
I
don't
will
have
say,
to.
confrontation, I can't do it no more.
Yeah.
Since my anxiety, like legit, I used to be not scared of that.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you know, I've dealt with some drama in high school and stuff, and like, I can tell someone off, like, I'm like, let's go, you know?
Yeah.
But now, oh my god, like, I don't, at all costs, I will avoid it. Like, I
Yeah.
will literally not talk to someone for 2 weeks to just not have to have that conversation.
Yeah.
I can't, because like,
Yeah.
everything just comes up, and I literally am shaking.
Yeah.
And like, I haven't even talked to them yet,
Yeah.
and I'm like shaking.
Like, just the thought
And
of
at that
it.
point, it's like if you're trying to cut them off, is that even worth it to like
Yeah.
push them
Exactly.
through it?
It's like it's now.
like,
just
just-
bye. I'm not talking to you anymore.
Yeah.
How would you describe your mental health in the workplace and just like in your professional career, I guess?
So I do work in advertising, which is a very, unfortunately, burnout heavy industry. Like, I know too many of my colleagues who left on burnout. Like, it's a thing, and I think it's not just advertising, a lot of marketing right now, because they ask marketers to do everything. So that's something that, you know, it does happen, that work gets very overwhelming. I don't think I've ever had a calm week where I have a day that I just kind of like, ooh, let me like clean up my desktop, you know? Like, I mean, like, I do overtime probably every week, but like, I like what I do. Like, I genuinely enjoy what I do. So my mental health, I would say, since, you know, the experiences that I've had and stuff, I just make sure to draw boundaries. So like, let's say I do overtime. Like most nights I'll work till 6 and maybe sometimes 7 because of whatever project. But when I log off, I log off.
Okay.
And I have colleagues who will send emails until 11 p.m. at night, but like, I won't answer them. And it's not to be rude. It's just, it's like, I know I'm a hard worker, but I need those boundaries, because if you start looping me in at weird hours of the night and stuff, I will never have the time to shut off, and I will burn out, because then I just feel like I've never stopped. And, you know, that's happened to me like in previous roles where I just like, during COVID, I was like, well, I'm going to jump on my laptop and do this so I don't have to do it tomorrow. But then I didn't have any off time, you know, and that is really draining at the end of the day. So my mental health now is in a much better place. Do I still have anxiety episodes at work? Sure. Sometimes there's a lot going on. And like, you know, when you just like your to-do list, you're like adding, and then you shut off a meeting and you look at it and you're like
how am I gonna
like, there's just so much and it's so overwhelming that like I will spend that afternoon and I won't do anything because I'm just so overwhelmed by what's on my list, which is so dumb. I'm like, this is dumb, but it's so counterproductive. You're like staring at your to-do list.
I'm like, I have so many things, but I don't even know what to start.
And then you're like, oop, it's 5.
Like,
you know?
exactly.
But like, so I've had episodes where, you know, I get very anxious and I'm like overwhelmed, but honestly, I will like message one of my colleagues and be like, I'm going for a walk. Like, I need a minute. And I come back and then I'll organize my shit. But like, I take that time that I need. I take my lunch hour every day.
Same.
Very few.
I tell all my coworkers, I'm like, you better be on lunch.
Yeah.
Like, you better be taking your lunch, because I know all of my coworkers, like, they don't take lunch, and I'm like, you need to take that break.
But yeah, so I really make sure to put those boundaries in place, because, you know, even if I'm getting messages and whatnot, I know that I need that lunch hour, because I won't eat. If I work through lunch, I literally forget to eat, and like, then I didn't eat, and then my health is taking a toll, you know, like, so I think it's all about putting those boundaries in place. If you need to work a little bit longer, work a little longer, but don't log on at every hour of the night and start answering Teams messages at 10 p.m. Like, personally, you won't find me doing that unless there's an emergency, you know, because like, I won't sustain a long time if I do that.
Yeah, exactly. So. It has such a big domino effect too. Like you said, like just taking that 1 hour lunch break will help you have like a great next 2 days probably, rather than doing work during lunch break and, you know, having a panic attack or going through an anxiety episode just because you didn't take your 1 hour lunch break.
Yeah, because when you feel like you haven't stopped, then your body, like, and I mean, you know, it's just, I always tell myself, I'm like, Alex, it's just a 9 to 5, like, because I did so much in the past. Like, I was working 9 to 5 and going to school and doing associations and case comps. I'm like, it's just a 9 to 5. But like, when this is now your life, you do need to have a good routine and put those boundaries in place.
Yeah. And you did all of those things, but it wasn't the healthiest either, and that's why
no
don't do all those things.
Exactly. So even though like, oh, you've done it, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily like right for you to do all of that and not take breaks.
Yeah,
everyone needs breaks and it's healthy. But I also think in the workplace, sometimes I feel like even nowadays it's not that accepted to like vocalize your mental health issues, or like, because now it's becoming more open to be like, okay, look, I have this issue, so this is how I work best. You know, I'm not like neurotypical or like off the traditional sense of like a working schedule. Now it's becoming more open, but I feel like people will not vocalize it right away when they're starting a new job or anything like that. And also I feel like workplaces don't have it set up to where it could accommodate you either. You know, it's still very like traditional. So I feel like that needs to change.
I think it also depends on the company, right? Because some companies, like I'm lucky the agency I work in does really value mental health, and it's like they've given us even more money in the past 2 years because of COVID in terms of like mental health benefits, and like my therapy's covered by my insurances and stuff because they value that, and because it's so burnout heavy, they don't want burnout. They're not saying come out here and burn out. Like no one wants that, you know? So I mean, I think because of that as well, like my supervisor even told me, like, raise your hand if you feel like you're gonna burn out. Like you gotta flag that because we don't want that, and we will find solutions together. But I think really the issue is less so, let's say in the companies, the issue is more so society, because we feel weak if we're gonna raise our hand. Like, you know? So I mean, I think I've had periods where I was almost gonna burn out, and I'm like, I'm not gonna raise my hand, you know, but I am gonna ask for a week of vacation. So then I'll take some time off and see if I'm okay when I come back. But it is tricky. Like I have never told anyone when I got hired, I have an anxiety disorder. Like you don't want to tell it, right? Because it sounds...
And then the way that they might have like an opinion of you after that, even though they don't want to. It might just be like,
or they'll act differently, not ask you for a lot of things because they think it's gonna. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it.
It's definitely tricky. Like it's normal that people are influenced by that.
But like I said, you know, the colleagues that I did have who did leave on mental health leave, it's taken well. Like so I will say on that end, I think employers are getting more and more used to like we need to accommodate this, and we need to be respectful and be open-minded about it. So, you know, if my colleague did say like I need to take some time, they're like, that's okay, prioritize your mental health. We want you to come back well, so take your time. You know, and so like I think there are companies that are good. If you work for a company that is not valuing your mental health, it is time to go, because that is toxic. That is not going to be a good place for you to grow. If they look down on any mental illness, like,
and no job is worth that. For sure. We've said this. Like,
no. Even where I'm working currently, they value mental health. They'll give like. Even my boss, she's always like, if you need a day off, don't tell me why. You can take the day off.
Just
That's
take it.
People have cried in our team meetings. We have weekly check-ins. Like, we really try to promote as much as we can to like take care of ourselves. And also like company-wide, we have a rule like don't email between 6 p.m. and 7 a.m. Like, no one's going to answer you. At lunch from 12 to 1, you're not expected to answer, even though people still do. But that's more on us than like the company. But like, I'm happy to see that more and more companies are promoting that you have to take care of yourself. Yeah,
for sure. I hope everyone just starts to do that, because it's really important, and it has a big, like, even I'm scared like going to the workforce. I'm like, what if I tell them that like I have this about me that may like take me longer to do tasks? Like, are they gonna take it well? Like, I'm definitely not saying that anytime like at the beginning, because I don't want to throw them off, but it sucks that you have to feel that way.
It sucks that you don't want to say it right off the bat, you know, but at the same time, like, it does not define who you are. So you can also try your best, and if it becomes an issue, then you should feel comfortable to bring it up.
Exactly.
Before we go on, do you think that it's gotten worse because we're working from home now than working? Do you do hybrid system? Okay. So
I think what's gotten worse, I think probably burnout has gone up because of this, because we have no more boundaries. And that's why I really try to put in my boundaries, because it's like, at the beginning of COVID, I didn't have any, and I was working late, and I was taking my laptop in all the different parts of the house, and like that, like no, now I have my space where I work. I have never taken my laptop into my bedroom because I do not want to have my work where I sleep. And I try now. The office is open again, so now I'll go into the office like 3 times a week because that creates a boundary for me, because I will not open my laptop when I come home from work now. So I think like, but a lot of people are still working from home always because they just prefer it, and like that's fine, but like, it is an issue for me, the fact that people are working such crazy hours because they work from home, because then I'm getting all these emails, and even though you don't expect me to answer, I'm seeing that you're working, and like there's like a little voice in my mind that makes me feel like I should get on.
I'm getting like nervous.
I do this thing sometimes. I know my coworkers are listening, but I do this thing sometimes that I'll leave my Teams open to make it look like I'm still on, because I see they're still on. Even though I'm not, because like I take the boundary for myself, and like I've told them like between 5 and 5:30 I don't want to keep working, so that's the time I'm gonna get off. But I'll keep my Teams on because I'm like they're still working, so I don't know. Am I supposed to be working?
Yeah,
but,
like the outcast of like but you should feel guilty.
No,
like,
I know, but it's like an internal
for this many
thing.
hours. I'm not volunteering to work here.
That's very true as well. But I do think that like the lack of respect of boundaries has become an issue for me. For me, it's not like my colleagues, it's the clients. The clients expect 24/7 because, well, we know you're home with your laptop, so you can do it, right? And so like that's really tricky because you're trying to balance client expectations, but like, I'm next to my computer, so like, I could do it if it's urgent. YouTube, whereas in the past, we couldn't do it. It's gonna have to be Monday. We don't have our computers, but now
the expectations are changing.
It's hard to say no because we can do it, but we choose not to because of boundaries, but like we can, and you always have to please the client. So it's, sometimes it becomes really hard, and I don't enjoy that. Like that's a part of, the post-COVID world I'm not liking very much, because I'm starting my career, and I started it during COVID, unfortunately, and I will never know what healthy work-life balance is because of this. Like I will never know what it is to leave your computer at the office and to know that no one will ask you anything. I have my computer with me sometimes when I go home to my parents, let's say. I'll bring my work computer in case someone needs something, because they're going to expect it from me, even if it's just like 5 minutes to do something real quick. Well, they're going to expect me to have my computer near me because it's at home with me, right? But like, you know what I mean? I'll never know what it is to have your work computer at the office. And it makes me sad, because I think that was genuinely work-life balance, was when you could just be like, I'm on vacation, I'm out of service. But now it's like, what do you mean you're out of service?
Like the fact that we're connected online, and now it's even easier to work. Like they've come up with a whole system because of the pandemic. It's like
it's tricky.
No.
Like I work in social too, so it's like 24/7.
Social's the worst. That's why it's like a never-ending job.
So like in my previous role, I was doing community management on weekends too, because someone has to. So like that was, well, no, but I mean it sucks though, because it's like I miss the world when like I can't do that. My computer's at the office.
And it won't fully ever, I feel like, revert back to how it was, because they've found a system where we can work 24/7.
Which is why we need to put in the boundaries, Exactly. And I've done a lot better since all of this. I don't work weekends anymore, don't worry. But like, I realized there was a little too much at the beginning that I was like, oh, like, okay, cool. Because I felt like my computer's here, I need to have, like, no. It was also now I stopped bringing my computer with me on weekends, and now I'm like, I'm allowed my personal time, and we all need to do that, or else we will all burn out.
Exactly. And I feel like also at the beginning of COVID, because like we didn't have much to do, people were just like, you're not doing anything anyway, so why don't you just keep working? Why don't you finish?
And this is why I would work super late and stuff, because I'm like, I don't want to do it tomorrow, like whatever. It's, what am I going to do tonight? Watch Netflix, like right?
Yes, watch Netflix.
Watch Netflix. Exactly.
Set boundaries, everybody. We love boundaries. I feel like I always say that because
every episode now we're like, you better be setting those boundaries.
Because I feel like I didn't even know the definition of a boundary. Like in a couple, maybe a couple months ago, I was like, I never really like.
You don't think about it until it's said.
And I feel like I have a lot of like people pleasing personally. So then I was like, what is a boundary? And now I'm like, okay. Gonna set that.
A Canadian woman in the workplace. Sorry. Smiley face! Exclamation point! Sorry!
Oh my god.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you think there's like a scale of how everyone feels anxiety, or is it just more black and white? Like you either have it or you don't. And obviously there's different, like if it's an actual like a disorder, or you're just feeling anxious, like So I don't know.
I think, there's definitely a difference there. Anxiety, I will say, like, I personally feel like that should be used if you have an anxiety disorder. Because then, like you said, it takes away from people who do have an anxiety disorder. Because if people are like, oh, I was feeling a lot of anxiety this morning, but they were just stressed. Exactly. Like, you need to know that difference. Yeah. You know, so I think, like, you can be anxious. I think a lot of people can be anxious, but it doesn't necessarily mean anxiety, even though it is part of it. That's not all. Right? So, I mean, I do think there can be a gray area where, like, people can have a panic attack without having an anxiety disorder, right? So, like, it's definitely something that people can feel without actually having an illness per se. But I do think, like I said before, there is really the issue of people not understanding what anxiety is. And it is a little more black and white than we think because I do believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, there is a chemical imbalance when you do have that disorder. And that's why I say you can't get rid of it. Once you actually have it, like, you're stuck with it and figure it out, right? So, like, you got to find coping mechanisms, and, like, this is a lifelong journey, which, like, sucks, you know? So it's like, I think it sucks when people, like, say, oh, like, I had anxiety last year, and it's like, what, like, was it? Or was it, like, you had a panic attack, which, like, absolutely sucks, and, like, I'm not taking that away from you, but, you know?
Automatically mean you
when I was doing research, it said that, like, panic attacks, they happen often because of a trigger, but if you have a panic disorder, they just come whenever they want.
Okay.
So there is that. I do think people, that's why, like, I did research, because I'm like, Again, I'm not a mental health professional. I just know what
This is your experience.
Exactly. Like, we just know what we're feeling, and, like, you went to the doctor, you learned about it that way. I try to do research and try to learn from other people, but at the same time, because we don't like get taught about this.
No.
So often we just call it what we think it is, but it's not
what we
that.
hear, social media, people talking about.
And like I said, anxiety, it feels like the end of the world. It feels like you're dying, which I know sounds so dramatic, but, like, you're literally checking your vitals to, like, such an extent where you think you have a heart arrhythmia, you're having literally a heart attack, like, you think, because it feels like your chest is coming, like, your heart's gonna come out of your chest, you know? So, like, my anxiety has made me puke. It has made me had, like, bad diarrhea, which is not so cute, sorry guys, but it has made me have, like, horrible headaches, like neck pains, back pains, like, you know, like, it has triggered into my physical health sometimes. And so that's why, personally, sometimes I have a hard time when people say, when they were stressed, they had a big exam, and they're like, oh, it's giving me so much anxiety. I'm like, no, it's making you really stressed. I'm sorry for that, and it sucks, but, like, I've experienced exam stress and I've experienced anxiety. It's not the same thing, you know? So, like, that's where I think people do need to take the time to kind of ask themselves, and you 100% could have anxiety and you just haven't been diagnosed, and please go to therapy and see someone who can let you know and guide you through that. But, like, I think people use it way too lightly.
Like, don't interchange the word stress. And I think people think they can just, like, interchange them. They mean the same thing.
Exactly. And, like, that's why I felt super alone at first. Because I'm like, this isn't anxiety because I'm dying.
And you felt stress. And now you're feeling anxiety. So I'm like, well, if they're both the same. Like,
and I 100% was part of the problem in the past. I didn't know what anxiety was. I'm like, oh, I'm so anxious because of this, that, whatever.
But now that you know.
Like, now that I know, I'm like, oh my God, I'm never making that mistake again. Because it, like, that's why I felt alone. Because had I known what anxiety really was, I wouldn't think I was dying. Right? So it's like, I think we do have a lot of work to do in that discussion, because it does invalidate people who don't know what they're going through. Like, if we tell them anxiety is just stress, they're going to think, like, there's something severely wrong with them, because it's so much more than that.
And that might take them longer to actually find out what's happening with them.
I feel like one good question, maybe, which I don't know if we have, but is, like, what does anxiety feel like? Because I don't know if I really touched on that.
Yeah, anything you want to, like, mention that you think is important, like...
You know, I'm talking about stress versus anxiety, but I don't think I really went into depth about what anxiety can feel like beyond, yes, heart palpitations. And, you know, it can give you a headache, but it can actually, basically what's happening is your body is doing so much when you have anxiety, or when you're having, like, an attack, for example. It's overworking itself so much that, like, you'll get spots in your vision. You can get dizzy. Like, I've been dizzy at work to the point where I thought I was going to pass out, and I needed to, like, you know, and it's just like a random work day, right? And, like, you'll get super, super nauseous. Sometimes I can't eat.
Is that like an ocular migraine type of thing? Like the vision stuff? Because I
don't think so.
No, it's a different.
Well, because I have migraines too.
But then, like, the spots in your vision. And
the spots, it's more like when you do a chute de pression. Do you know what that is?
Oh,
like
like pressure drop?
Yeah, like when you like almost pass out, that feeling you get before you vomit, or like where like everything gets dark. Like sometimes that'll just happen if you're having anxiety because your body's doing so much. It's like your heart is pumping more.
Oh shit! I didn't know that.
See, I want to say I feel like I've gotten that, but I don't know if it was stress.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think I thought they were ocular migraines like twice, but. Not that I'm like diagnosing myself with anxiety, no. But my doctor was like, no, it's not that. But I'm like, bro, I couldn't see. Then I vomited. Like I felt super dizzy. I vomited. Like once happened at work. Once happened super random. Yeah, it was like after I went skating, like some random stuff. And I'm very sensitive light. Anyways, whatever. But
I think like it's these things like play into it. And that's something that people don't know that like anxiety is physical too, because whatever's happening mentally where you're overthinking, and then maybe you're not sleeping because of that, you're not eating because of that, and then it does have a lot of other ramifications on your body. But I think one of the worst parts about it is just the feeling of when you really having anxiety straight up. I'm not talking about a panic attack necessarily, just like you're kind of in the aftermath of it and you're just still anxious and like the jitters is what they call it really. But essentially it's the feeling of wanting to crawl out of your own skin and just be outside of your body, because like it feels so incredibly uncomfortable. So like, you know, it's like you feel like you're not pain wise, but it feels like you're on a bed of nails because you're just like, I can't, you know? So it's like a very difficult feeling to explain, but that's what I mean when I say like stress is different, because I've had stress before and it hasn't caused that. Like it makes you have the butterflies in your stomach, right? Anxiety is that you always have the butterflies and it feels like you're about to jump off a cliff, like that, you know, feeling when like it goes up type of thing. But like random times of the day, like it's not fun.
It's not always like a result of something specific. Could just happen. Exactly. Right? Okay.
So it's not necessarily, you know, like butterflies is like, oh, you get a cute text from someone, like no, the butterflies is just always you're like trying to fall asleep and you're like, bitch, I'm not falling off a cliff right now. So yeah, like it is, and that's just me. Like I think everyone has very different situations. I know some people it's like really bad stomach aches sometimes, and like it can affect their digestive system. That's happened to me too, and you know, it's so much deeper than just a feeling of stress. And I think that's something that like
need to emphasize on.
And I know when I made those little Instagram stories and I talked about like some of my symptoms and I was saying that, people were like, I have that too. Okay, like I thought I was crazy. Like, you know, and of course there's the heart rate that's just stupid. Like my resting heart rate, I have an Apple Watch. That is either a good or a bad thing if you have anxiety. Some people do not want a smartwatch. But like my resting heart rate is always at around like high, like 90s. Like that's bad. Like it's supposed to be 70-ish, I think, and it's like 99 like most of the time, which is like messed up. I kind of want to go to a doctor and be like, am I good?
What's happening?
I always get checked and they're like, you're fine, and I'm like, are you sure?
So if you're monitoring your heart rate like constantly and you see that it's very high, then obviously that's something you should get checked out. Like if it's,
I don't know, because then if it's like, anxiety, it's anxiety, and sometimes it gets dismissed, and sometimes I kind of wonder like, but do I have a heart condition, or is it just, well, you're labeling me with anxiety, so it's like that's normal, you know? So like then there's the anxiety of that, and wondering like, some people have health anxiety, and I'm very grateful I don't have that. That's when every single thing, like you feel, you see something weird, you Google it, and like you fall down the rabbit hole of like.
What, it's a hypochondriac or something?
I think that's what it is. Well, there's a difference between that and like health anxiety, I think. But anyway, it's pretty much the same thing, I think. Again, not an expert, but like I know I have people that I know who have that, and like that's brutal. Like I'm able to like rationalize what's happening to me and like blame it on certain things, like, oh, I ate something funny, like maybe that's just it, you know. But like some people, they can't do that. It's like too much for them, and they need to know, am I dying? And it's, you know, and it's very real for them. It's like an incredible fear. So there's a bunch of different types of anxiety.
Exactly.
You know?
That's what I was gonna say. There's so many different types.
Yeah.
So we want to know, what are your go-to like coping mechanisms when you go through these like anxiety episodes? Like if people can relate, maybe this would help them too.
I think for me there's two different compartments to that. There's first of all what I do in my everyday life to just reduce the anxiety I have in my life, and that's coping tools that I got from like my therapist and just things in my routine. And then there's the coping mechanisms of like, okay, your girl like is panicking right now, like bring me down the ledge, you know? So in terms of like my everyday life and whatnot, it's about keeping a good routine. Like I said, like I'll try going to the office to make good boundaries and stuff like that, but also taking time every day or like multiple times a week, if it's not every day, to do something for you and to do something that, you know, brings you peace, whatever that is. So like for me, every day I'll try to do one of multiple things. Yeah. Either I will paint or I will color mandalas or I will go for a walk in the morning or I'll play some ukulele before bed. Like one of those things I'll try to do every day. Or like journaling as well. Like I'll try to do one of those every day, and honestly sometimes I don't do it, and sometimes I can do a few, which is great. But I'll try to do one of them because it kind of helps me stay grounded. And it's like something that it's not just me watching TV and like then you go to bed and you're like, oh, I feel like I did nothing all day. Like you know, like it's something that brings you a little like moment of, you know, peace. And it's something that also makes your brain work a little bit too. Yeah, exactly. So that's something like in my everyday life, and also cutting out caffeine was a big one. Okay. Like big one. Ever since I cut out caffeine 3 years ago, like I literally have not had any.
So this is the matcha story now.
Yes, because it has some caffeine in it.
Like when I say caffeine, I mean all caffeine. I don't mean coffee. I don't like everything.
Anything that contains caffeine.
So I have not drank a Red Bull or an energy drink in 3 years. I haven't had a cup of coffee in 3 years. I haven't had a black tea, a green tea, white tea, all the teas. All I drink now is herbal teas or rooibos tea because those are caffeine free. I have started now to be able to deal with decaf. Decaf has a little bit of caffeine still, so at the beginning it was still too much for me. And now, like I said, I'm doing better because I have like more coping mechanisms and stuff, and so now I can have like a little bit of caffeine in like decaf drinks. But that means like no more boba, which makes me cry.
Bubble tea, that was like Alex's go-to everywhere in a meeting after.
The willpower I have.
Bunnies, bubble tea.
Bunnies, boba.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty much bunnies and boba.
That's what I know. Exactly.
Bunnies, boba, and ABBA.
I love that. And Austria.
Yeah,
there you go.
All the things I love.
But yeah, so I mean, I think those are things that help me a lot, and even in terms of nutrition, like if you do have anxiety, you'll notice some foods will trigger it, and it sucks. But like for me, a lot of sugar will, or stinky cheese, which is like really weird. Like a nice.
It's really interesting to me.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know either.
So my sister asked her nutritionist, and it's because there's a lot of bacteria in stinky cheese, and for some reason, like that could have. Which is like random. But so I can have like a few pieces, but like I can't eat as much stinky cheese as I used to. But yeah, so that's the stuff that I do kind of like every day type of thing, and things that help me for that. Also therapy.
That's always
that
for anything. I feel like that should be
every
like a
single person
part.
should go to therapy.
Exactly,
honestly, it doesn't matter if you have anxiety, depression, like, or you're just perfectly healthy inside and out.
It's nice to just
go
talk
to therapy.
To a professional about.
Yes, we all have traumas we have to deal with. All of us.
Yes.
So it's healthy.
Yeah, exactly. You shouldn't.
But for me, it's just great because it's like you go in. This sounds bad, but you go in like dump everything. Yeah. Just like word vomit, and you don't realize how much lighter you are afterwards. Sure. So it's really helpful.
Exactly.
I used to go like when I was in the bulk of it, like I went every week, and then I went down to like once or twice a month, and then once a month for like last year, and then this year now it's once every like 2 months, 3 months. Okay. My therapist is like, you're the only person I know who books her therapy session 3 months in advance. It's like just me and her calendar.
Whatever works for you.
Well, yeah, because it's like, you know, I want to keep my therapist, but I don't need to go all the time. It's expensive too. So, you know, like you want to stay mindful of that, and you don't always have plenty to talk about, but it's still good and healthy to go and like have someone to talk with. But then the things that I do in the moment, like if I'm actually like dealing with anxiety, like panic attack and whatnot, basically anything that can help you feel grounded, because it kind of feels like you're floating almost. But so what I do in like an anxiety episode would be, first of all, like there's breathing exercises you can do. At the same time, I'm kind of like, that's full of crap, because like when you're in it, like no amount of breathing exercise will help, but you can still try. So basically the method that I use is I'm very visual, so I'll visualize it. It's like you breathe in, draw the line upward, then you hold your breath, you draw a line this way, then you breathe out.
Is it that 4 or 5 second thing?
Yeah, and then you hold and you make a square. So you just do this square again and again and again.
It helps you focus on something.
The visual helps.
Yeah, exactly. There's that. There's another technique that, like, I forget it now because it didn't work so much for me, but it does work really well for some people, where it's like you have to think of 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing, I don't know, what's the other sense?
Taste?
Taste, yeah. And you just think of that and that grounds you because, again, it takes your mind off whatever is going on that's making you panic.
You're like present. It makes
Exactly.
you, yeah.
Exactly.
I think you spoke about that in our...
I think in our when we did it with Leanna, no, with our
we had an episode on like how to be more present and I think that came up also.
Just like exactly.
Yeah, so it's just being like in your environment, being aware of what's around you. So that's one thing that helps too. But also, like I started taking CBD oil. That's helpful.
I've heard that. I have friends too who have taken it.
Yeah,
and
a lot of people.
It helps for sure.
Honestly, like I wasn't a big fan of like last time I smoked weed like a long time ago, so it was like, and I had a bad experience and everything, so like I didn't really want to touch it too much.
A lot of anxiety for people.
Well, that's it. Like I used to smoke like a little bit more, and then I stopped for a while because of my anxiety. Then I did again, and then I had another anxiety attack, and I was like, I'm not doing this for a while. But then so I was I was a little bit reluctant to trying CBD because it is weed.
Yeah.
But honestly, the CBD oil, there's like no THC in it, so it's just you put drops under your tongue, hold it for like 30 seconds, and then you swallow with water or whatnot, and like it actually helps me. It just like calms me down. It doesn't veg me out to the point of like no return, but it's really just like, okay, I can fall asleep now type of thing.
Okay, cool.
At the Naturiste, I found Cervalen, which is like, it's a yellow bottle.
Okay.
It's like a syrup. That actually helps me quite a bit too, so would recommend if anyone is looking into, it's like a little bottle for like, I want to say $20, and like there's plenty of teaspoons in that, so like lasts a long time. I recently got ashwagandha, which is a herb that also calms you. Like, listen, I've tried everything. St. John's wort is a natural supplement that I very much recommend. And I have some friends who unfortunately recently started having anxiety episodes, and I gave them some of mine, and it helped them. So it's not just me. So it's like little capsules of like a natural herb. But I will say it unfortunately interferes with birth control. So that's the shitty part. Yeah.
So many complications.
Honestly, I'm so curious to know if I get off birth control, what the heck my mental state will be.
Honestly,
will it be better? Like, I'd love to find out.
The person.
I'd love to find out. But
like, my personality switched. I'm telling
She's like,
you.
I'm a whole different
No,
person.
seriously. Like, there's so many parts that I'm like, before birth control, I wouldn't be like this.
we should do a whole episode on birth control.
We're gonna have a girl talk episode actually in this season.
Yeah,
so
sneak peek.
we're gonna talk about it.
But like, so I think like birth control might play a big role in that as well. You know, maybe I would be cured if I got off of it. Who knows?
But it's happened that a lot of people have gone on birth control and they developed anxiety because of it, and it's just it blows my mind that a pill can do that to you.
Yeah, exactly.
But you know, there's a pill out there for men, but they don't want it because of the zits.
Okay, cool. So kind of to end off the episode, do you have any like just general tips for those struggling with anxiety, whether it be anxiety like thinking they have an anxiety disorder or just questioning like what's going on with them?
Like, literally go to therapy. No, but like
That's advice every episode. Go to the
no, but I know it's not that accessible
benefits
for
and a lot.
but I know it's not that accessible to everyone, so I'm also not going to say that because that's kind of like a privileged answer that like I have a therapist, it's easy for me to go to therapy, you know, but also just talk to people, because I didn't realize that some of my best friends were literally dealing with anxiety when I was, and I was like crying myself to sleep because I thought I was alone, and like I didn't know how to solve it, and I didn't know how to move forward with it.
Right.
I was like, I'm broken now. Like that's what it felt like. But now looking back, I'm like 3 years later, like I'm okay. I'm not cured. I'm still dealing with it every day, but it's a lot easier than it was. And it's like, talk about it to people and don't feel ashamed, because that's the saddest thing to me, that people feel ashamed of it, you know, because there shouldn't be any shame in it. I don't think so. But yeah, so definitely talk to your friends, to like whoever, and if you hear anyone say it's not serious or like downplay someone's experience with depression or with anything, well, not just cut them off, but like put them in their place.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, you know, I've been in conversations with people like our parents' age who are like, oh, like get over it, that's not a real problem. But it is. Like if someone could potentially get to the point where they want to end their life, like take that seriously. Okay?
100%.
Yeah.
Don't let anybody tell you it's not serious.
No,
like don't even give them the power. And
it is serious. A lot of people deal with it too, which is shocking. So, you know, don't judge a book by its cover, and definitely talk to your friends.
Especially like in today's day and age, like everyone puts out their best selves on social media, so you don't know what they're going through. Even like people that are mean for no reason. like you can just be adding fuel to the fire and it's just gonna build up for them. So just be kind to people, like honestly,
and just be open to the conversation. Just because you have a certain like perspective about something doesn't mean you're right.
And that's in everything.
Research, exactly. Like, yeah. 100%.
Open the conversation.
I know,
because like I'm so fed up of this stigma. Like it's ridiculous that it's so frowned upon.
Exactly.
You know?
And you were doing so much, you didn't realize that would result in this. Like you didn't.
Take care of your mental health. Like for real. If it feels like too much, like there is a point of no return, and unfortunately, I'm an example of it. I did too much, and do I regret any of the stuff I did? No, I had an amazing time doing everything I did, but. Do I regret doing it to the point where I like broke my mental health? Absolutely, because I would be able to drink a London Fog today if I did it. I miss boba.
Do they make like caffeine-free
No,
tea?
I swear I've like emailed chat time about this. Like
they should have that.
And they said like they're coming in like Korea. Like there's like caffeine-free options coming soon, but in Korea or something.
Learn how to make
Taiwan, I think.
Tea at home, like caffeine-free.
I know.
That's so much work.
Just get the tapioca.
So much work to get the bubbles and like make the bubbles.
The bubbles are what have caffeine in it?
No, it's the tea. It's all so there's like I can have the QQ juice at chat time. It's like a mango juice. Like there's a few juice options, but it's not tea, you know? It's like I can't have like I just want a pearl milk tea, but like they all have a lot of caffeine. So
that's the end of our episode. We hope you guys learned a lot. We hope you enjoyed listening to Alex share her story.
Yes,
thank you so much. Yeah, I learned
so much just from this one conversation.
Exactly.
That's one thing I was telling Afi. I'm like, I love that we did this podcast, even if we're not like
making much, like
we're not like popular or anything, but it's just like for us we learn so much, and like it's also like good, like you were saying, just to talk to someone, because like
they're our own therapy sessions.
Exactly. Like seriously,
and I don't need to see my therapist next month. Like I'm good.
Stage your session. But even like I look up to you so much, so obviously I don't want you going through like anxiety episodes, but to know that like there is a limit to everything, and like you do need to take care of yourself. So it's nice that you do open up, and you can be an example for other people that are scared to talk about it or just be open about it. But
I hope so.
Yeah,
100%.
Well, thank you so much, and
my pleasure.
we'll have, of course,
bring me back.
Yeah,
of course,
100%. Same here. But thank you everyone for listening, and as usual, you guys can find all of our links. We'll put Alex's link if she wants to. If you guys want, if you want to follow her, exactly. And as usual, follow us on Wild Thoughts Pod on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube as well. You can leave any feedback, like, comment, share, and our individual.
Everything.
Everything as usual, as we always say, of course. Super repetitive. We say this every episode. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Bye, guys.
Bye.